What is up, everybody? Jaco here today, and today I want to talk about something that's very controversial. There's people who think this individual is guilty, and there's people who think that this individual is innocent. And there are people that do find this person innocent because in her trial, the jurors came to a unanimous decision that she was innocent in the murder of her daughter. Now, I want to talk about this because I just watched the full Peacock 3 episodes docu-series on Casey Anthony. Now, I finished it yesterday. I really wanted to talk about it yesterday as it was fresh in my mind. So I'm definitely going to forget a lot of things, and I really don't want to forget a lot of things because it's very important. But I just want to talk about this on my way to the gym because I want to give my personal opinion on the situation. Now, before I get into it, first of all, I'm sorry about the lighting. This is just the way it is right now. Before I get into it, I want to talk as a father of a daughter who's about to turn 1. If anything was happening, like there's a lot of accusations of her father possibly molesting and sexually abusing her daughter at the age of 3 years old, and poor rabbit. At the age of 3 years old, and quote unquote, she was sexually molested and taken advantage of by her father when she was 8 years old. So she was making now the assumption that came out 14 years ago when this happened and there was a trial. Now she's claiming that her father, there's a high possibility that her father was molesting her daughter, raping in those words. Oh look, they did the sidewalk. Now I don't think there's if you didn't see the docu-series, go see it. This is all spoilers, so I do apologize. What he said at the funeral for her daughter was very disturbing. It wasn't, when it was shown, it wasn't taken out of context. When I first heard her say that he said these things, I was like, okay, this can be misconstrued, this can be taken out of context. Okay. Then they actually played it and I listened to it, and it sounded pretty creepy when the father was like, I miss smelling her sweat when she came in. I miss smelling her hair. I missed her smell. It just came off very, very weird, right? So this whole docu-series is a series on her point of view. And this whole series feels like it's an attempt for her name to be kind of cleared and get people's sympathy instead of hate on her situation because she went through trauma and that she should be excused for what she did and her behavior. And now she's, I don't know her age, I think she's in her late 30s, maybe 40 years old, and she's more sympathetic to her daughter's death 14 years later. What are you doing? Oh my goodness, can't use turn signals. More sympathetic to her daughter's death 14 years later than she was, when her daughter was missing. So there's a lot of information. I want to give my personal opinion on how I feel about this whole situation, but I think, and this is my personal opinion, like at the end of the documentary, I said to myself, maybe he did try to asphyxiate her in order to molest the child. Now, I think that is a high possibility, but I think that if he was molesting her before, don't you hear your daughter? Like, no grown man can rape a child with a child not making sounds or noises. But at the same time, it's like, if he did it, did it while he knocked her out. But it's just like, first of all, it's very disturbing to even think about. But I feel like the least possibility that I think could have happened was the father tried to asphyxiate her. He then tried to rape her, and she ends up dying. And either the father is a master manipulator and controls everything, or Casey Anthony is just the stupidest person in the entire world. So it's one of those two theories, or it could be a little bit of both. So let me turn this off because I'm like into this. So first of all, if Casey Anthony was molested as a child by her father and her brother, like, first of all, let me go back. Her brother and mother are so absent in this case and this documentary that it's like, why, right? And then let me say something. If my father ever did anything to my daughter in any way, shape, or form, and at the end of the documentary, she's like, I don't have answers for you, right? But maybe one day I will have answers for you. So she's telling us she doesn't know the answers, but somehow one day she might get the answers. How is that possible? She's like, she wants answers, she wants closure, and she can't get it, but she actually could, because you're accusing your father of what happened to your daughter, but you're not confronting your father. If I didn't have answers and I thought my father for an inkling of anything was involved with my daughter's death, I would literally beat the crap out of my father and literally do what I have to do to get the answers that I want. But that's the problem, is I think there's only 4 people who knows what happened. And it might be 3 if the brother wasn't in the house at the time. So the mother, the father, and the daughter. And they were showing cell phone records of Casey Anthony, but they never showed cell phone records of the father. And they literally put the father aside because he answered all the questions that they wanted. They never looked into him like they looked into the daughter. Now, I'm not saying she's not involved. I'm just saying that I feel like his involvement is as much as hers, and that as a former police officer, I feel that if something did happen, such as an accident, he might have told her, like, listen, hey, if we call up the cops, we're going to go to jail for negligence. And let's just hide this and sweep this under the rug and call it in 30 days later when there's no way for them to realize what happened. And then we'll go from there. Just don't talk about it. Go. But at the same time, if the father knew the daughter was missing, why would the mother of the daughter be out partying and doing all these other things? Now, I get it. Media was trying to make her look like an absent mother and a bad mother. And maybe she wasn't that bad of a mother, but think about this, right? She is a pathological liar. And one second. She's a pathological liar. She lied about her nanny. She lied about where she was currently working. She was actually working under the table doing stuff at night, bartending, but accepting cash at night. And I think at that point, when you're not there, like, if you thought your dad was molesting your daughter, would you spend all night out and leave your daughter with your dad or your mother that you know that allowed your brother and father to touch you? That's where it just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. So she's out making money, she's out partying, she's out doing these things while her daughter's at home, right? I feel at that time she was definitely on drugs, the mother. Now, people were saying, oh, well, maybe she could have gave her daughter drugs and she fell asleep and blah, 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 blah. I don't think she would give her daughter drugs, so I kind of like put that out of there. But at the same time, if you're on drugs, you really don't know what you're doing, right? And that's why a lot of the times where she's like, oh, I don't remember what happened, I can't remember. But there's other times in her case, like, she remembers vividly, like it's a perfect remember. And then there was a time that they had the dad on the stand and he was remembering what the daughter was wearing to the exact T that day, but couldn't say what his wife was wearing. So it's the fact that 30 or 31 days later, you call up, you say, our daughter's missing. Like, this isn't a 22-year-old girl. We're talking about a 3-year-old infant. And the fact that the composure of the mother, the father, and Casey is very, very, very skeptical. Very skeptical. The emotions that come from these people don't seem to be there. And I'm going to tell you why. Because they knew from the very day when something happened that something was wrong. They knew. And that's why they don't have the same emotions, because they've kind of gotten over it, because they knew the situation, they knew what they did. Now, if somebody murdered their granddaughter or their daughter, they would be more upset and they wouldn't have gotten over it. But they're gotten over it because they know what they did, right? Now, let me explain to you what I feel they have done, right? So it's either one, the father asphyxiated her and tried to rape her and she ended up dying, and the father tried to claim it was an accident and told the daughter to shut her mouth. That's one thing. Back to the pool situation, I think that's also a possibility, but she said, oh, the ladder wasn't on the pool. Like, how do you remember that, right? How do you remember that? So I think that's a possibility, and then the father tried to cover it up, and the daughter was sleeping or something, and that was the situation. Because they kind of the brother came out and was like, oh yeah, this is how our father put our animals down. Like, when he buried it, he tied them up with duct tape and all this other stuff. Now, the way this poor innocent girl was treated after death is awful. To just be dumped in the woods. There's only two people that could have done this, and it's Casey or George. That's it. So for them to treat her that way and then sit there and act like everything's okay is just awful. And I know they're both liars. They're both liars. And they're like, well, George is so innocent. He just answers the questions, blah, blah, blah. But he changed his story multiple times, just like she changes her story multiple times. And they're both liars. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I just, as a father of a daughter, this story is troublesome. And she's like, oh, well, everybody wants answers. Everybody wants to know. They want to know that Kaylee's okay. People aren't looking for answers to know your daughter's not okay. Unfortunately, she's dead and she's never going to come back. What people want is the truth. People want the real answers. And this documentary was awful. It was awful because it was like, hi, I'm Casey Anthony. I was involved in killing my daughter, but I was let go after going to jail for 3 years. Jury said I was innocent, so I'm innocent, so I want to prove my innocence without any answers. So I'm going to go on this documentary, tell people that I did lie about certain things, but I did not lie about what happened with my daughter, and I do not know what happened with my daughter. But I'm going to blame my father solely. So less like the father, they were like saying the father had an affair, right? Okay, if there's a person grieving over his granddaughter and there's another woman grieving and they connect and then they get drunk, they're going to have sex. I don't think that him having an affair has anything to do with anything. I think that's just another thing to put on him. But I'm 90% sure Casey Anthony did something that resulted in the death of her daughter. And then I'm 100% that it was George's idea to cover it up and do what he did. Like, I don't think Casey has the knowledge, the power to wrap her own daughter up and do this. I think he told her to go do your thing. I'll take care of it. That is my opinion. I want to hear your opinion, guys. I'm sure I missed so much stuff. Like I said, it was so fresh in my mind yesterday, and now it's like not fresh in my mind, but I still got an idea for it. So for her to get like, and then all her defense attorneys took her in and took care of her. The weirdest thing in the world, and they still don't have answers, and they feel that it's not their place to ask, but you let her live in your house with you these last 10, 15 years. That's crazy. That is crazy and very, very weird. So, and then her father a few years ago got into a major accident and was in like, and she never reached out to him. Apparently she said, and he said she did. If you don't have the answers that you're looking for and your father's in a place where he's going to die soon, confront your father. get the answers you want. I don't care if like you have to sit there in a room with him for 24 hours recording the whole thing. Figure it out. Because you are solely saying my dad did it and I had nothing to do with it, right? If that was me, I know I'm a man, but I talked to my significant other and they're like, I would do the same thing. I would literally continuously beat the crap out of my parent if I thought that they knew what happened to her, until I got my answers. So the day that she, the day, I don't know, because they talk about 30 days they called that says she was missing, and then they talk about a day that they subpoenaed the phone records and showed where they were at the time. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Have any questions below or have any theories, please let me know in the comment section below. Jake, God bless.